Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Canadian Premier League Newsroom podcast. I'm Kristian Jack. Headlines from this weekend's games include York find the right answers as Lowell wins it late in Halifax. Edmonton's Twin Towers stand tall. That's right, Ongaro and Wojciechowski rescue a point at Pacific. Forge look back at their banners and step forward with an important win over Atlético Ottawa. And Mo for momentum as Farsi's goal over Valour is enough for Cavalry to win at home. Again, joining me again is my newsroom team. Busy week in the Canadian Premier League. Lads, we'll recap that. We'll go from top to bottom with the teams playing out many games this week, many of them playing 2 games this week. But before we do that, we must address the women's team winning gold in Tokyo. What a splendid performance. What a monumental moment for the soccer in this country. Where's to start? Let's go with Benedict. We have to go to our resident correspondent when he's decked out again in his Steph Larbe headband. Benedict, your overall thoughts on covering this team and it culminating in a gold medal?
Yeah, same before we started. It's still a little bit hard to believe that it happened, right? Like you mentioned, it's a monumental moment in Canadian soccer. I think it's a win that's going to change the sport in this country forever. I think that's an understatement, and to do it in the way they did as well, of course, in a dramatic penalty shootout, it doesn't get better than that. And it's nice to see a team I support win on penalties for a change.
Amen to that. Marty, your thoughts overall on this?
It's a just result at the end of the day, considering how hard all of these people have worked to make this program what it is over the last 10 years. Obviously, all of the heartbreak. It's just the one result in Canadian soccer. We've had a bunch in the last couple years of, this monumental achievement, but this one feels, the most virtuous, if that makes any sense.
Certainly does. Charlie?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't actually super optimistic about this team heading into the tournament because they hadn't looked awesome in all of their friendlies. They were struggling to score, but they did it. This is a very hardworking team, a team that clearly was very engaged and buying into Bev Priestman's kind of system, and it just worked out, and I still can't really believe it, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit of disbelief on my end as well. Brady, you're out in Halifax from coast to coast. This has been an enormous story. 4.4 million was the number that CBC reported as viewers to see the gold medal be won at that time. What's been like there? What's your overall thoughts on this?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to watch it with a group of strangers, and I warned them, like, I might cry, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up, and it was close. It was 50-50. Watching that penalty shootout was so entirely stressful. There was 2 or 3 moments where it looked like it was over, to be honest, and Sweden had wrapped it up, and that's what you want from a final, isn't it? And like Benedict said, it's just nice to be on the right side of it for a change.
Yeah, I think Benedict, was it Caroline Sager who came up and could score? I thought it was done. I'm not going to lie. I thought at that point, of all the optimism, I'm sure many Canadians thought of that as well. She had the gold medal on her boot. She's an experienced player. I mean, there's no Christine Sinclair, but there's a Swedish Christine Sinclair. That's her, and she blasts it over the bar. At that point, I was like, whoa, maybe. Sometimes you just think maybe your name's on the trophy, so to speak. Maybe your name's on the medal. And that's when Canada, I felt like, wow, they could do this. And I was just delighted for Julia Grosso to get the goal and to get it home. But yeah, nothing better than penalty shootout, lads. I know people hate them, but I love them.
At that point, 3 missed penalties from Canada. And it's like, oh yeah, it's over.
It was a very dramatic shootout. There were a lot of misses.
Oh yeah, exactly. They're the best ones, I think, sometimes. I mean, I know everyone loves to keep scoring, like the Europa League final, gets down to like the goalies at the end and everyone scored still. But for me, the back and forth momentum, that's the best. But no, special times. Great to see many of them in the closing ceremony as well. Safe travels back home, as I'm sure they're already doing. And this is just the start. We'll all continue to be part of the process and telling the story of these wonderful women and what they did a great job out in Tokyo. So congratulations to them. I know it made a big impact to Canadian soccer, and it will, because we were involved in many of the press conferences this past weekend where everyone's talking about them. It just feels good about it. And Canadians Premier League is right there in terms of flying the flag with this country. So with the sport, let's get into it. Pacific top the table, 21 points from 11 games. We're going to go from top to bottom this week. We'll recap games that way, but because many teams played 2, I think it's the best way to really talk about these teams a little bit in detail. Pacific with a really good week, 2-1 win over Valour and a come from behind victory there in that one, and then 2-2 against Edmonton, where they let 2 goals slip but did make 8 changes. So I suppose Pacific 4 points from 6 in the cold light of day. Marty, upon reflection, will be happy, although Pa-Modou Kah wasn't necessarily delighted after the match.
Yeah, after the FC Edmonton match, he just said the result slipped away, which is fair considering how they really did dominate play. Alan Koch suggests, I know we'll talk about Edmonton a bit, but he suggested the wind was a bit of a factor in the second half, try to make it feel like it was a tale of two halves when, in reality, Pacific deserved to get the result. You mentioned the rotation, Chris Lee coming in at fullback, and Kunle Dadaluku had a great game on the right side until a couple defensive errors led to those goals. That's what happens when the Twin Towers get involved. You just give up points. You just give up points. Sadly.
Yeah, they will. I know we're going to get to Edmonton too, but there's going to be a lot of cross promotion here in terms of talking about different teams and cross storylines.
Yeah,
this is a tough team to play against.
Yes.
Pacific at some points have looked really good defensively. But Edmonton are going to give you a different profile of a match than any other team in the Canadian Premier League. Wojciechowski and Ongaro again played, again scored. And so I guess with that kind of lineup, maybe, Pacific took a little bit of a risk, but at the same time, it looked like it was going to go well for them. I'll have to say this, Charlie, I'll turn to you. When they made 8 changes and suddenly they're up and cruising, I'm like, this is a message. This is a message sent right here. Yeah. You can make that many changes in this league and deliver a performance like that, and they're up 2-0 and comfortable. Now, they didn't win the game, so that maybe is a little bit less of a statement, but it still speaks to something about their depth that other teams cannot produce right now.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's really many other teams in the league that could feel that different a team and still, look like themselves, at least for an hour of the game.
Right.
And I think it is impressive. And maybe the reason you do see them sort of fade towards the end there is because all of the depth that they can usually call on is already on the pitch. And a lot of the players that might have started in other games, maybe they're a little tired. They're feeling like they're going to have maybe the night off. And some of these players that start every game, it's a little harder for them to get involved off the bench, right? Yeah. So I think it's still really a very impressive thing for Pacific to do. And I think even though they didn't end up with the win, I think they probably did still send a bit of a message here, just especially with the way they come out in that game and just dominate for so long. And I mean, if they can kind of nail this down and see out games like that, and Pacific becomes, the team that can field 2 entirely different teams on a weekend and a midweek, that'll be something that most teams can't do. And it'll really go a long way towards, long-term success, because obviously the games get really bunched up, the fixture congestion, there's not a lot of downtime between games. So if that's something that they're able to come away with and actually do, then they're going to have a massive advantage.
Yeah, Pa-Modou Kah said to Marty after the game, to fight for a championship as we want, you need a deep squad. And I think everybody that played stepped up. Marty, again, you did the game. That's what you want. I mean, he's going to say that. He's not going to say that publicly if he doesn't believe it. Obviously, he's not going to go out there and have a go at these players, but ultimately, he needs to be able to rely on these players, and they went out and delivered.
Well, you mentioned Edmonton's a tough team to play against. I thought Taron Campbell was fantastic, and that's a player we'd love to see, as I wrote it, love to see him perform that well at Starlight Stadium, considering it's 2019. And that's just another piece in the attacking, maybe 5 or 6 pool of players that they have there that, again, he just steps up and scores and has the assist and look great. The depth is there. I know you want to talk about Marco Bustos. He started and he's played every single game, not every single minute. Right. But he just continues to be the one continuous piece, right?
Yeah, he does, no doubt about it. You mentioned Taron Campbell, the 12th man on the team of the week this week, just didn't get in. Ollie and I went back and forth. Yeah, it was tough. It was a difficult one. We were fighting over it a little bit, but Ollie and I don't fight. But Brady, your thoughts on this Pacific team right now as they top the table through 11 games?
Yeah, I think honestly, like we spoke so much about the depth, but I think a big part of the reason they're able to rotate, even though this result did slip away from them, I think they have as defined a system as any team in this league right now. I think their squad really has a really clear understanding of what Pa wants to do, and obviously Marco's a big part of that. That's why he's retained week in, week out. But the way that they've been able to change players in, and like you said, the quality not dipping is obviously impressive. I think I recall in their home opener against Cavalry, around the hour mark, there was a bit of a lull, and you can bring Ollie Bassett, Matthew Baldismo, and Josh Hurd off the bench for that second wind. I don't think any team in the league is looking forward to them, to see out the final half hour. And so like you said, eight changes is a lot of turnover. It's probably not sustainable, but it's a sign that, you know, we're not going to rely on 11 guys. We're gonna lean on this full group down the stretch.
Benedict, any kind of issues you have with this team at all? Is there any way you can get at them? Because the goals were avoidable, and we talk about their depth going forward. Maybe although Samaki's been great again, do they have enough depth at the back? Is that kind of a weak link, or what are you looking at in terms of improvement against obviously a mouth-watering top of the table clash midweek against Cavalry?
I think they're going to want to get Thomas Melier-Jaguar back and firing all cylinders. I think that's going to be a big thing, is to get some depth at the back. But I think they are looking like the strongest team in the league at the moment, and deservedly at the top of the table. And as well, playing at home with the fans is obviously helping them as well.
That's true. They have had a good schedule in terms of coming out of the bubble, and that's taking advantage of that. So things will even themselves out. They are not at home midweek. They travel to Calgary to play Cavalry, who are just 1 point back through 11 games, 20 points. They come off back-to-back wins again at home, 2-1 over FC Edmonton. They were down in that game and came back with 2 goals in the second half from key players as well. Dan Klomp got the winner. Joe Mason got the equalizer. 1-0 win on Sunday over Valour. I did the game on One Soccer, the come-on match of the week. It was a strange game, Marty Thompson. I think you're on this one as well. A game that I think Cavalry had a lot of control over, although Valour certainly had a right, and Rob Gale said after the game that they felt like they were in the game as well. But maybe just one that shows that Cavalry's got that maturity to see out games at the moment, Marty.
Yeah, you know, after the game, Tommy talking about obviously keeping pace at the top of the table, and he said riding the peloton to describe how he was keeping pace. In that game, watching it made me feel like I was riding a peloton. It was, or how I imagine it to be. Yeah, it was a very strange game. You're right. But Cavalry just found that little slight window towards goal, frankly, that they had with Mo Farsi. A great feed from Sergio Camargo on that play. And it was really, as Rob Gale pointed out, it was really just a miscue at the back where they brought on Tony McHale, and he just wasn't in tune to that role just for the first, I think it was like a minute or two. Yeah. And then that made that space. Yeah, strange game, but I mean, it's maybe something that we could expect from Cavalry. You know, I think they've won 4 from 5. You know, they just find ways to win these games because they have all of those difference makers up near the top of the pitch, right?
Yeah, and we saw Novak and Mason in the game, which I thought was fascinating to see how they're going to work together. We haven't seen that really from the start yet. Mason kind of played a little bit deeper. Novak was kind of that reference point as a 9, but you know, Mason looks like the kind of player that just wants to get involved in the game. I don't think he's a traditional 10. He is still a 9, but he wants to get there, win the second balls. That is a dangerous partnership.
It's worth trying to figure out how it could work, right? It's worth trying it out.
Yeah, I agree with you. We were talking during the game with Gareth and Ollie on One Soccer. Like, if they're playing a big playoff game this week and you got everybody back, are those two playing? And if so, where are they playing? You know, what is their best 11 right now? I don't think they're anywhere near that. I mean, we've got, you know, this is a great team that's flying high. Still no Mason Trafford. Tom Field at left back isn't there, which is why they went out and got some more help. Escalante playing left back, Ben Fisk coming in. You know, they've got injuries. Ali Musi, you got Joe DiChiara, you've got, you know, Minitel still not there. I'm missing a couple of others, Richard Luca. You know, you go on and on. The depth in this team, Benedict, is pretty scary at this point. And talk about riding the peloton. They're just riding their bike, chilling, drinking some water. They haven't even stepped up going to second gear yet.
Yeah, I think like Pacific, they may be missing one piece at the back, maybe as a bit of depth. But I think Cavalry are arguably the deepest team in this league. I think, especially in attack, like every single player on that team could be a starter in this league, and I think that's a very scary prospect if you're looking towards the end of the season and they can sort of rotate and mix it up a bit, like we saw teams do in 2019, heading towards the playoffs. Like we could see them do that again and kind of just keep playing different formations and let Tommy decide what his best formation is and maybe not show us what it is.
There is an element of game management, Brady, that they're just going through here, that they just find a way to operate in these games. It was interesting, the midweek game against Edmonton, the first half, for those that saw it, was not good. They were nowhere near at the level they should have been. It was the home opener. I know there's a lot of other energy going around that they're trying to do a little bit too much. And Tommy Wilton Jr. said that he really went into them at halftime. It'd be interesting to see that kind of fly on the wall camera action. But he really did go into a halftime and got a reaction. And then it didn't seem like they needed a reaction on Sunday. Just they know how to just go, again, just see it over the line in these moments, Brady.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they did come back and win, because this team's been so hot and cold and so sometimes reliant on that first goal. I mean, we've talked about all the attacking options they have, but they've been shut out, I think, in 5 of their 10 or 11 games now. It's an interesting way. So sometimes they'll pop off for 3 or 4, and then they have 4-game stretch in the bubble where they were unable to score. And I think a little bit a part of that is, like you said, a lack of continuity. It's fantastic to have a bunch of options, but if you were pressed to pick an 11 for a final tomorrow, could you do it? It's an interesting kind of balance to find, getting guys a rest here and there, but also once you do get into a one and done playoff, knowing who's going to start the game.
We talk about those playoffs. When it comes to big games, you need big players in big moments, and I think they've got them. Klomp's immense. Norman is growing big time, Charlie, and Mason's movement is exceptional. It's great to see him back-to-back games get the 90 minutes to a point, well, quite close to 9 minutes, and just show what he can do in a team like this, because he's got his goal, he got 1 goal, but he looks like a real player at this level, Charlie. Joe Mason.
Yeah, Joe Mason was definitely probably the player at least I was most excited about seeing this season. And now that he's with Cavalry, he's starting to get more involved. We're starting to get little glimpses of why, because he's very good with his feet. You can tell that he's one of those players who just knows where the net is, for lack of a better explanation. It's kind of that Danny Ings sort of thing, where he just knows where the net is, and he knows who's around it. So if he gets on the ball in the box, he can turn and shoot quite quickly, or he can find the open man, and he's just always kind of looking to make this play kind of the most threatening possible. He's not really looking to play it back and hold it up and reset. He's looking to go at the net as much as possible, and it's really fun. He's a really exciting player, and you can just tell the experience he has and the levels he's played at. You can tell that he has just so much quality, and I think that he's kind of settling into this team well, and he feels good beside these players that if you've played at a high level, sometimes you come into another team and you feel like maybe you don't settle in with the teammates as quickly as you might. You aren't necessarily trusting them yet to pass them, but I don't think that's been the case with Joe Mason, who seems to really be working with these other players quite well with these little 1-2s and just his movement off the ball. It's really, really been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it looks like a real player at this level, no doubt. In the pregame show, we had a feature of him on One Soccer, and he called himself a fox in the box, and that that's very true, I think. Also in that pregame show, shout out to our own Marty Thompson, who put together a great piece with Latori and Akio, the brothers, and they did get on the pitch, so that was a little bit of nice history in the second half as the substitutes came on, and I think became the second set of brothers to play against each other in the same game after the Polisi brothers. That's right, isn't it, gents? Yeah.
Yes, I believe that the Zebbies were close last year, but I think Bruno was hurt when Allen was playing, when it was against
Edmonton. One of them came off before the other one came in last year. So it was the Policies earlier this year.
Fantastic stuff. Talking of Valour, a 4th straight loss, first team in the Canadian Premier League in 2021 to lose 4 games in a row. They are the only team in 2021 in the Canadian Premier League to have 2 3-game winning streaks as well. So from the highs to the real lows right now for Valour. Narrow losses, 2-1 at Pacific in midweek, where they really coughed up a bad goal in the 89th minute for Bustos to get the header. A game they probably did not deserve to lose based on the performance. And we just discussed how close this one as well. So fine lines right now, Charlie, a positive or a concern with Rob Gale's team?
I'm not sure on this one, because I think obviously you lose 4 games in a row, you're very concerned. But you just look at the performances and you think, if anything happens differently in any of these games, maybe they have another goal, maybe they don't concede one of them. I think that there's not that much to really criticize about this team yet. They certainly have looked like they maybe haven't had that same sort of fire since coming out of the bubble. They've been a little bit different. And I know it's quite a different transition for them, and that's been a little bit tough. But it's not really something that I've been able to put my finger on with what exactly is the problem. I mean, I know that a few different players have kind of rotated through the lineup. They're also obviously dealing with lots of injury issues. But you just look at the players on the pitch and you kind of think that really they should be in an okay place, because they've got 2 center backs that can play together now with Romeo and Reyes, and that means that Stefan Sabara is allowed to play his actual preferred position, which should be a huge help. Brett Levis has been back. I mean, and so on and so forth. So I think really you look for them to maybe start just finding that kind of edge again. They haven't maybe been penetrating as much as they were in the bubble. Austin Ricci has maybe taken a slight dip in form. Just maybe it's the service or whatever that is. But we all know that these are very talented players, and this is a team that we've seen some of the best football in the league from this year. And I think it'll just take a little bit of time, I think, to maybe readjust, take a deep breath, calm down. It's okay. And I think they'll be all right. They've got one more road game on this trip, I think, in Edmonton, and then they're back at IG Field, and I think they'll start to feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, that's when we probably will see the more valor, the valor that we expect to see. You talk about players back. Arnold Bukamutu got his first start at left back as well, a big player for them. But Marty, as someone who spent over a month in the bubble, how would you be feeling right now if you then had to spend more time in a hotel like these guys have had to do in terms of going out on the road again? Because I spoke to Rob Gale this weekend, and he was telling me he's just had almost sick of the sight of seeing the hotels. They're never home. And although they were home and had that slight advantage during the bubble, they weren't in their own home, seeing their own family. And here they are on the road again, to speak to Charlie's point.
Yeah, it's you can tell in the results. I think, Daryl Fordyce, speaking after the game last night, mentioned that, they've gone to a couple different places in the CPL, right? Starlight Stadium we've talked about. We obviously talked about Echo Field. But at the same time, what did he say? He's like, when we were home, we were ourselves, and we've just got to knuckle down and get through this and get home. I think that's totally the case. I don't think there's any cause for concern. This is an extremely difficult circumstance to be essentially living in hotels for, I guess that'd be close to 6 or 7 weeks. That might be a record across sport in Canada and maybe North America as a whole. But at the end of the day, you just got to get through it. It's like Charlie said, it's only one more game, and then I think they're going to be okay considering where they are in the standings.
Last word on Valor before we get to Brady and Forge. Benedict, the one thing I would say about them is that we know that they have, they don't have the star power that some other teams do. Lots of reasons for that, financial investment, different things. They've done a great job. They are a true collective team, and they win games as a team. Benedict, the only thing I would say, and I know what your thoughts are on this, is that in games like that, where they just narrowly lost 2 games in a week, that difference maker that we're talking about that other teams have, and we just talked about what Cavalry's depth is with Mason and getting a goal with Klomp, and we've talked about Bustos, and Alaman's hurt, so maybe he can be that linchpin, but they are a very young team. That's what they're lacking at the moment, and that might be what the likes of York, Edmonton, certainly Halifax are saying, this could be the reason why we're able to catch this team. Your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I think maybe that difference maker was their center back, Andrew Jean-Baptiste, as well. He was, especially on the defensive end, he was winning every set piece, it seemed like, in the bubble. And then I think that's something that they're missing. As we saw with the Pacific game midweek, they made a big defensive mistake at the back, and that cost them. And Rob Gale keeps saying they're laying up sloppy goals, with the phrase he used. And I think that's something that they need to sort of take control of. And I think also part of the reason why there's not cause for concern for this team is it is a losing streak, but I think, as I said with Easton Ongaro, and when you score, goals will continue to come. I think it's the opposite way as well. When you lose, sometimes it maybe gets in your head, and maybe kind of lose a couple of games in a row for making these sloppy mistakes. And I think once they sort of get a win under their belt, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, good point about Jean-Baptiste. Rocco Romero stepped in and done well. He did get the goal midweek. Something to keep an eye on, he's quite aggressive. He steps into the play, and a lot of times that he actually joined the attack a few times, but a couple of times he does get caught out a little bit, and that was the case on the Farsi goal as well. It wasn't necessarily his fault, but stepping in and then getting turned to get behind him. But, just starting off, right, he needs a little bit of time to get used to everything, but he could be a decent player at this level, no doubt, and I think Valor need him to be. Fourth and the last place in the standings right now for the playoff spots are Forge. A difficult week for them, particularly in terms of results. Lost at home to York United. I was there on Wednesday night. A strange game where they lost a key player early in the game, Alexander Ashinori Jonsson. Had tons of chances, missed a penalty. It was a celebration atmosphere back in the stands. for the first time since 2019, but lost to a goal by 1-0 there. But then came out on Sunday. Brady, this was your game, 2-0 win over Atlético Ottawa, a day of celebration where they raised their banners and then went out and partied on the pitch.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't want to not give Forge credit here, but it was a little bit of a game where Ottawa kind of determined the result on their own. Like some very, very important mistakes. Obviously, the opening goal comes through the penalty. It just looked like there was a little bit of frustration from some of their attacking players. Ryan Telfer was dropping really deep to get involved, and then unfortunately he seemed to have fouled Borges. It was a tough one for me. It was a forwards tackle, if you will, and then it's 1-0, right? And then they get one again on a set piece a couple moments later. And like Bobby said, set pieces are kind of a representation of what we do in open play. We're getting rewarded for some good build, and I think that was fair enough. And then, before halftime, now you're down a man. BT Martinez sort of just loses his cool, and now you're chasing the champions. You're down a man. You're down 2 goals. It's always going to be an uphill battle, but no, full credit to Forge. They've got to obviously have a big game in El Salvador on Thursday, and Bobby said, we're trying to find that balance between overlooking that and kind of keeping an eye on some minutes. So they were able to get a rest for Becker, Babouli, and get some young players some minutes at the end. I think at the end of the day, that was just about a perfect result for them.
Mo Babouli with the penalty. Tristan Borges missed one in midweek. 5 penalties they've scored now this season. They only have 12 goals through 11 games. Wow. You can do the math, people. That's 5 penalties out of the 12. Becker scored 3 goals out of individual brilliance. Doesn't leave a lot of other goals that's come out of anything in terms of forward finishes at the moment. Is that a concern, Marty? And it's clear that the answer to the question about Tristan Borges still missing something is yes at this point, not himself.
Yeah, I won't repeat what he said in the press conference after the game against York. He let out a
was
word.
Not happy.
He was not happy. And we can talk a little bit about that York game because I think that was the perfect, and Kristian, you were there, that was the perfect distillation of what I think is Forge's biggest issues right now. I think their expected goals were closer to 3.0. They had unbelievable chances. You mentioned the Babouli missed penalty. They looked fantastic going forward. They created a ton of chances. It just wasn't there. And when I asked Tristan after, is this a confidence thing? He said it's not. And I think that's a good thing going down to Central America and playing in CONCACAF League. But it just says that, it just seems a bit rusty. It just doesn't seem like they've got that little thing clicking in the attacking third, which again, I think is going to be the big issue with this team going forward, which is crazy to say when they have the attacking pieces that they do.
Not scoring a ton of goals, but don't look now, 3 points off the top of the table through 11 games and not even playing that well.
Oh, they're fine. They're fine.
That's a good place to be. No, Ben?
Yeah, definitely. I think rusty is the best way to describe it. As Marty said, I think they're making the chances. They just need to start finishing them, and when they do, they're gonna shoot right up to the top, I think.
Charlie, what are your thoughts on Forge? It's great to see Alexander Ashno-Johnson back after obviously dizzy spells in that first game midweek. And as I wrote, I think he was an enormous loss in that match. When he, Cisse, and Becker are playing, find me a better midfield in the Canadian Premier League because I can't find one. Charlie.
Yeah, Johnson's a huge player for this team, and it was definitely concerning to see him go down getting hit in the head because we know he had those concussion issues in 2019. So you really hope that he's okay, and it looks like he is. But yeah, this Forge team is still missing quite a few important pieces as well, right? I mean Daniel Crutzen is also one of the best defenders in the league, and he's not there. There's just so many pieces of this team. I mean, that are missing. Chris Nanko as well as an important one, and I think that they have done quite well with the circumstances. Borges very clearly, he's probably not 100% healthy either. There's something really really amiss there, but I think if you were to ask Forge, they'd say, yeah, given all of the circumstances and everything we've been through, barely ever having enough players to fill a bench, they'd probably be reasonably happy with how things have shaken out. I think all they've got to do is kind of keep themselves in position to stay in the hunt for the playoff spots for that top 4, and they absolutely have done that so far. And this is Forge FC we're talking about. They can win a single game against anybody. And I think that's probably how they would be looking at it right now. They just have to make sure that they stay in the hunt, which they are.
Yeah, shout out quickly to Mo Babouli, who finds goals at crucial moments. Think about this. Then they lost the first 2 games of the season, and against Pacific, they were against the ropes in the 3rd game, and Babouli got a goal in the 70th minute that calmed everyone down. That was what I would call a true 1-0 goal. He scored the only goal against Edmonton, a penalty, which was a true 1-0 goal. He got the 1-0 goal against York in the home opener for them, which was the only goal of the game. And then again, stepping up when he needs to, scoring big goals in big moments. Where would they be without him? That's a big moment to talk about as well. So credit to Babouli at the moment, really helping Forge get some of these crucial points up to 4th. In 5th, was the team that defeated them in midweek. We have to talk about York United in great detail here. What a week it has been for them. On the road, they go to the champions and get a real gutsy win. They go down to 10 men and still pull it out with a win at Forge. And then in Halifax, come from behind to win a dramatic 5-goal thriller by 3-2 in this one. Benedict, Jim Brennan was very happy after the game on Monday, and why wouldn't he be? On Saturday, what a terrific performance that was. He said, quote, great overall performance by everybody, and watching it, that's what I felt. We really saw a collective effort from York this week.
Yeah, he also said this team believes they have the ability to get results against anybody, and I think that's definitely what they showed as well. I think from top to bottom, everyone looked up for the challenge, and they went down twice and kept fighting and kept getting back into the game. And then eventually late in the game, the brilliant passing play working out from the back, and D.D. and Abzi going down but jumping straight back up again and finding the cross into Lowell right to score the winner. And so this team just really wanted to win, and they made it happen.
Yeah, I thought it was a great win for youthful enthusiasm because they looked, quite honestly, in the first half, they looked done. You know, they played in Hamilton midweek. They'd already played. It was their 3rd game in 8 days. They had to fly out there again. There were not a lot of rotation, some injuries that are key players. And I'm watching this, and Halifax is storming them in the first half. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be tough. And then they dug deep, and then they dug deeper, and then they followed a way to win the game. And, you know, I liked Abzi at left back. I thought he was tremendous again. I like him at that position a little bit better than further forward. I want to give you guys opportunities to talk about what you like about this, but shout out to Max Ferrari, who, what a week this boy had. Different positions, anywhere he wanted to play, left back, right back, central midfield, go further forward, play wide, can defend in one-on-one situations, technically very good, and just got the goal. Just seems like that player will say, get on my back, lads, I'm going to push you through this. Marty, what do you think about York in terms of how they got it through this? Because they grew up in front of our eyes this week.
Yeah, Humber grad. Shout out to Max Ferrari. He was no, I mean he's
nice.
been fantastic. Yes, yeah, he's been fantastic. Maybe just pulling it back to that game against Forge, they defended quite drastically to save that result. And something Dom Sator said after the game was that, you know, this team fights for each other. They work very much as a unit. And I think you could see that against Halifax as well. They do work quite cohesively. And maybe that is because there's that youthful streak with, you know, Cedric Toussaint is obviously there, Ferrari. There's that youthful streak, Lowell Wright obviously scoring the winner. There is a little bit of continuity in this team that I think people aren't talking about. And that keeps showing itself, right? I mean, 2 wins this week, it shows itself quite clearly.
Yeah, Zator was tremendous in both games. Great to see him playing, by the way, because he could have missed that game. And, you know, worthy member of the Gatorade Team of the Week this week. Brady, you were there at the game. We're going to get into more details of your thoughts on Halifax shortly. But what did you think of watching it live, this York showing?
Yeah, honestly, obviously, I was in the kitchen, so when I suggested it was a good game for the neutral, they weren't really buying that. But I mean, five goal thriller. The sun was out. I mean, I was certainly enjoying it. And you know, one of the home supporters did actually say to me though, like, what an advertisement for the league to have, you know, 3 kids from the York region under the age of 21 scoring goals, and you could see what it meant to them. Like the celebrations down in the corner was just incredible. Like Lowell Wright's on the field for 5 minutes, and I know you mentioned Abzi at left back. Like he had to be very patient in this game. He didn't have a lot of opportunities to push up. They defending corner, and he sees an opportunity to sneak up the field. He gets that one chance, and they get the winner. It's an unbelievable touch from Lowell in the box. Like very Lukaku-esque with his back to goal. Great touch, great strength, and he finishes there. No, this team is a lot of fun. They looked like they were having fun out there. Like you mentioned, some of these young guys, Johnston, Verhoeven, like they just looked like they really enjoyed playing in front of this Halifax crowd and silencing them. So, I mean, like I said, do we have all these local players, these young players who are kind of figuring it out right in front of us, kind of growing up, as you said. It's a treat to watch.
Yeah, when I watch young players like this, we're going to get to Wright in a second, Charlie, with you. But, for me, I look for different attributes. And I think in games like this, when you don't have a ton of the ball, I want toughness. I don't want you to surrender. And, I already talked about Ferrari. Johnston, for me, is that kind of player as well. It's like, he just stays in games. He's just moments find him and he drives teams forward. And he's, for me, an enormous difference maker for this team in midfield right now. But you mentioned the Lowell Wright winner. Mm-hmm. You talk about Lukaku. It's the kind of thing as a 17-year-old player when he scores a goal like that makes people and teams, scouts, anybody pick up their phone and text people. Right, Charlie? Because that's what this league's about, is it not? 17 years old, comes on. By the way, I think Jim Brennan and the team has managed him well by not giving him a lot of minutes here, because at the end of the bubble, he'd played a lot of minutes and looked a little bit exhausted. Mm-hmm. They've managed him better, came on, was fresher, and then the way he posted up and turned that defender and then was able to score that goal. 17 years old, as I said, that's what we want in this league, isn't it, Charlie?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think you're probably right that I'm not sure how long Lowell Wright is going to be in this league, to be completely honest, because he is really something special. I just to have that kind of maturity in front of goal at that age is just so impressive. And I mean the way that he's able to kind of make an impact whenever he comes into the game, if it's off the bench or from the start, he's definitely a player that, York seems to sort of focus a lot of its attack around when he's on the pitch. And I think it works out really well for them a lot of the time, because he's just, such a presence in the box, and he's quite an easy guy to find, because he's very good at finding that space and getting himself open. Then he's just so good with his feet that he can kind of get around defenders and hold them off to look for where the finish is. And it's just really remarkable to see that from such a young player.
The other thing quickly on this for York is, I don't know what you guys think about this, is that, do you remember in the bubble when they played Valour and Valour had a few fans there and they scored that goal and they all went to the fans and shushed them? And we were like, oh, isn't it great to have fans in there? And now they went to Forge and shushed them. And now they went to Halifax and shushed them. I think they actually revel in it. I think they love it. Them young players, they love that, and I think that might help them going on the road in these moments, because first of all, a lot of these young players have got a bit of a chip on the shoulder anyway. Some of them, we've all got that story in any of our professional life, but some of them have told them, sorry, you're not going to make it to where you want to go. Some of them have got a different path that they can still make it there and believe, and they've got a lot to prove. And when they go in these environments, Brady, that you felt what it was like, they delivered, and it doesn't get much better than going to Halifax and quieting that crowd.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about Isaiah and his performance overall, but obviously scored the big goal and again celebrated like it was his own supporters, but they weren't exactly on the same side. But one of the great little things I caught, I don't know if this was on broadcast or not, but he went off with an injury with about 10 minutes left, and there was a little bit of a peanut gallery from the suites, and he's blowing a couple of suits a kiss as he's walking off. He's a Cape Breton guy. He's from the area. You could tell, I think he was the first York player on the field. Like, he was really up for this one. But no, I mean, when he got his goal, of course, anytime you score a goal, you're happy. But you can see, like, he this wasn't an improvised celebration. He had this one in the back pocket for sure.
Good for him. Another York member on our Gatorade team of the week. Let's move on. FC Edmonton, 6th in the table, 12 points from 10 games. A little bit of an up and down season for them. Only 1 point from 2 games this week. 2-1 loss at Cavalry after they let them back in the game. 2-2 draw at Pacific after they somehow got back in the game. Marty, you're on that one. Your overall thoughts so far? Not the result that they wanted, but certainly decent performances for Alan Koch's team.
Yeah, we're still taking names for Ongaro and Worcesteski, are we?
We are, yeah. Twin Towers is kind of thrown out there, but I want something else.
I think like something that's scarier, because these two guys just sort of sit there and wait, and they find a way to score in all of these games. Even talk about the Cavalry one. We'll do that in a bit, but
the Eddie Krugers.
That's a good one.
Oh boy.
Okay, so there's two. Yeah, okay, hold on. So there's two of them.
The Eddie
There's two
Krugers.
Eddie Krugers. Yeah, no, that's really good.
Eddie
Yeah.
Krugers.
All right, we're sticking with it. So the Eddie Krugers in the Pacific game. No, I mean like they don't.
You really don't have to stick. You don't have to stick with it. I just came up with it, but let's see if
No,
people like it. We'll see.
I think
Let us
they
know.
will. I don't see why not.
They are scary. It's a good one. A good shout from you.
Well, because just imagine trying to defend East Ongaro on your heels. And that was something that we saw with that Pacific team where like both of those players combined, and Tobias has some incredible movement, is something that we've already sort of noted on this show. But the way that they can just sort of keep everyone on their toes and keep everyone frankly quite scared of giving up a result was really just shown at Pacific, right? Like maybe one or two defensive errors depending on how you look at it, but like frankly some very underrated finishing, especially the one that was basically at the byline for Wojciechowski. So like and it's the same thing against Cavalry. I know that at midweek, they were up 1-0 for those who didn't watch it. It looked pretty good for them, but they obviously just sort of wilted, and there were definitely some more chances that Ongaro could have finished. But at the end of the day, if I'm FC Edmonton, if I'm Alan Koch, I just need these guys to score once. Just give me one goal, and hopefully things work out. I think that the defensive side has been, not a great week considering that they gave up 4 goals, but I think we all know that there's a lot of promise there, right?
Yeah, there's a developing trend here that there's a lot of defensive mistakes against them that they're taking advantage of.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence.
No.
When you watch Burnley, for example, they force teams to make mistakes consistently because of their own twin towers in Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood. And by the way, Wojciechowski's got a lot of Chris Wood in him. He's got very soft feet, very good on the ball. And that, Charlie, is something to be said about this FC Edmonton team. They're direct, they go at you, and they know that the teams will sometimes wilt under pressure as defenders. You better be ready for these boys.
Absolutely. It's definitely by design that they're going to have those two just absolute handful of a pair of strikers just bearing down on you for almost the whole game. And I think you can see it in defenders when they try to play out of the back. They're maybe rushing things a little bit, and they're kind of feeling that pressure, and maybe it even gets in your head a little bit because that if you make a mistake in a situation, you're probably going to be punished quite severely for it. Because these are just two players that are just so hungry for the ball. They just want to find it, and they want to really, hunt you down when you're a defender with the ball. And it is really, a very exciting element to this FC Edmonton team. Because in recent years when it was just Ongaro up top, he'd have elements of that. But now that there's these two just fantastic strikers kind of doing it together at the same time, there's just so much more for a defense to handle, and they just it seems like more often than not they're going to struggle with it. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see just how teams can maybe adapt to that, because I don't know necessarily how you kind of stop that.
Yeah, great point. They also are, just look at the other end of the pitch as well. They are very defensively sound, and I think that's the key to success, that they can stay in games and get these boys to score goals. They'll be disappointed with the way they gave up the goals. Tim Guia, again, a mistake fell for him because he's had a tough season so far. Marty, again, at this game that you did, the Pacific game, that's got to be the message, is it not, for Alan Koch to say that I look at this team and I think, if you to back a team who's going to get a clean sheet in any game, you'd think that this would be right near the top of your list.
I've been saying it for a couple weeks, and maybe I'm being like a dead horse, but if you can just keep this team, this defensive unit playing the way that we know it can, then you can get results anywhere in this league.
Right.
Considering the combination that they have. Yeah, the Tim Guia mistake was obviously disappointing. I'm curious how if they do make any changes at the back, because this formula does work. But yeah, if the defense can work a lot better than it did against Pacific, unfortunately, obviously undone by Terran Campbell there in a great play as well on the assist to Pelusi's goal. They can get results anywhere. One quick question about the Eddie Kruger, though, if you don't mind, just before we move on. When I Photoshop it, do I put both heads in the striped sweater, or do I do two Freddy Krugers?
Two-headed monster, no?
I think you need two heads in the same sweater, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good to know.
Marty's all over this. I love it. I love to see that. This is the Newsroom podcast. We're developing storylines. The mind is going already. He's dying for this to end so he can go put his creative wizardry on something. I can see it already.
I'm just taking
on a t-shirt.
We've only got like 5 minutes left. We'll let you draw. We'll let you draw on your notepad for the next 5 minutes, and I'll lean heavily on Brady and Benedict for Halifax here because I know they're all over that. Benedict, you're all over this game. Brady, you were there. Let's go to you, Benedict, first. Halifax, 11 points from 10 games. They continue to be, quite frankly, a lot of people I speak to in the league, everyone's darling pick for some kind of comeback through the standings and going to be fine, but they need to start winning. And when you have a game against York at home 2-1 with a packed crowd in front of the beautiful sunshine and you don't get anything from it, that is a major disappointment. What went wrong here for Halifax, Ben?
Yeah, I think they kind of switched off a bit, maybe. Also, maybe fatigue, maybe setting in with this team. I think they have a lot of injuries at the moment. Might not be obviously to their advantage. I think as these bodies start to come back, it'll be better for Halifax. Peter Chalet came back in the second half. Jeremy Gagnon Lapare as well came back. I think as they start to get bodies back, they'll be able to sort of rest guys a bit more and maybe able to stay in games a bit longer. I think fatigue kind of kicked in, and York, a very young York team, sort of took advantage of that.
Yeah, crucial players back, crucial pillars for this team. Stephen Hart said afterwards about Jean Morelli, who scored again. That's what he does. Quote, he's a composed player, a good finisher, but some of the other players need to step up and lighten the load. We can't depend on him because then we become a very predictable team. Very poignant words there, Brady, on what this team needs to do, and a bit of a message to others to start saying we need more in the attack, no?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's great to get the contributions you're getting from Morelli, but it's not really his role on this team. He's more of a facilitator and a number 10, right? Obviously, Akeem Garcia has struggled to get up to speed. I don't know if it's a fitness thing, a confidence thing, but he's not 100% right now, unfortunately. And then, with regards to other opportunities to contribute on the flanks, Corey Bent's been really good, but again, more of a crosser, a setup guy. And then obviously we spoke about Steph Karađmanović on this podcast a bunch of times. Like he's just got to get that first one. I don't think they ended up giving him credit. I think Jake Ruby got the first goal. It looked like he might have got a touch from my angle, but he's a guy who just needs to get one. We've talked about how confidence and that people can be so streaky when it comes to finishing. I think they need to find somebody to help Joao out here because he's had a fantastic season, but they're going to need more up front, like you said.
Quickly, before we get to Ottawa, Benedict, a word on Ruby and Dona. Ruby makes the team of the week this week. Their fullbacks are amongst the best in the league, Benedict.
Yeah, definitely. I think I named Jake Ruby my man of the match as well. I think he offensively and defensively, he was a masterclass for him, I think. And Maury Donor, we've seen all season the quality he has on the right side. I think Ruby in particular in this game, I think that was maybe a breakout game for him to sort of prove that he should be starting maybe at left back, and maybe that allows you to move Corey Bent a bit higher up the pitch, as you've seen him drop back a bit into a full back position sometimes. So that's a very welcome performance, I think, if you're Stephen Hart.
Credit's worth, credit's due, no question. Good decision on the man of the match. Otherwise, how do I say this? Please don't give man of the match awards for players who play 5 minutes. Atlético Ottawa, 8th in the table, 7 points from 10 games. 2-0 loss at Forge on Sunday. This was your game, Brady, as well. We talked a little bit about Forge here already. Here's Ottawa in a big week for them. Charlie, I'm going to get to you in a second because you're going to be all over this week for them in celebration as they return home. A wonderful moment for them. And how do we go about improving that before we try and fix Ottawa with Charlie and others? Brady, what is going on with this team? Meester, I think, said it best when he said, quote, I think we paid a very high price for the mistakes we made. And I thought that was accurate, not only for the game, but for the season so far, that in key moments, they just continue to pay a very high price for individual and lack of management in the game mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you said, it's been the theme, not just in that game. Obviously, the individual errors on the penalty and the red card are easy to see, but it's been lapses in concentration basically all year, as you say. They look organized for 85, 90 minutes almost, and then you make that one crucial error, and it's decisive. But they haven't had a lot of continuity. They've had injuries. They've had a lot of new names coming into the squad constantly trying to get up to speed. We've seen, Soto get some regular minutes, now Olche in the lineup, but they don't seem to really have an understanding yet. They don't have much of a fluidity up front. Obviously, it's nice to have Telfer back after the Gold Cup, but again, he's only played, I think, 3 or 4 games now, and as I mentioned, he seems to be just dropping deeper and deeper to get on the ball, and which is, it's never good because there's no out, right? He's your target man. he's your guy you want highest up the field, and now he's he's frustrated. And I think obviously getting to go home is massive. We've talked a little bit about how hard it is, like for teams like Valour who've been basically living out of a hotel. Like Milovan Kapur, you mentioned after the game, he hasn't played a game of football where the fans were cheering for him instead of booing him in 2 years when he was overseas. And I don't think that can be like overstated. Honestly, it's sometimes the little things. And so Saturday is going to be a big one for them. And if they can get a win in their first home game against the Halifax team, who is also going to be up for it, I think that could be. It has the potential to be a turning point for sure.
It's a great point. There's a lot to like about this team on paper, and then they go on the pitch, and I get underwhelmed about them. And I think that's, for me, this, we just got to wait to see where these players come. Maybe they need time. Maybe the time needs to be all season, and maybe they need to bed in. We're seeing successful teams this season based on the fact that they've produced a lot of patience over the last couple of years. So I know it's hard, but they're 11 points back of a playoff spot, Charlie. No panic button being pressed in an 8-team league with 4 making the playoffs yet. But if any panic button's close to being pressed, it's on this team ahead of what is an enormous game on Saturday. It doesn't get much bigger for them in a lot of regards, not only because of what's happening in terms of home opener, but results on the pitch are needed for Mister's team.
Yeah, they need to really start putting the results together as soon as possible. Yeah, I think you're right that there's no panic button just yet, but we're getting a little bit close.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
I think that that home opener almost for me is a must-win game for them at this point, because as we said, we know how much quality they've got on the team sheet. There's just so much pedigree in a lot of these players, and we've seen players like Ryan Telfer completely rip up the CPL before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a team that is definitely a work in progress, and a lot of very different from last year, and they really haven't managed to put it all together just yet. But you would kind of hope to see maybe a little bit more from them by now, even considering the circumstances. I think just the attack, just given the names that are on the pitch there, it has been disappointing. Just that they haven't really had all that much fluidity or maybe direction in the attacking third that you might expect out of a team like this. So I think they really, I think they have kind of some time here before that home opener. I think they probably use this week of training to just try and get something clicking, just find something to work. And I think they can come out in that home opener on Saturday and maybe score early. Ideally, I know they scored early against Halifax, I think, last week. But if they can come out strong, then that seems like a moment that could end up being their turning point in the season. And we sort of have seen it with teams before. You win that one game and the load's off your shoulders. You take a deep breath, you feel so much better, and then you can turn it around. So I think that's kind of where this starts. Before we wrap up, a quick word away from the important result story is the fact that the game's just returning to Ottawa, Marty. That's just special. No, like it's been a while. I know they thought they were going to get there earlier, but here we go. And we know a lot of loyal fans and people who love this sport in our nation's capital who listen to this show as well and get to go pay what you want, go in there, have a celebration, and that's a special day for Ottawa, right?
Yeah, and the Pay What You Want initiative has been incredibly well received in Ottawa, which has been great to see. I mean, fans in Ottawa, we talked about it even when this club was announced before the pandemic started, have already gone through the ringer with losing a team and not knowing if it would come back and coming back at such short notice. So shout out to all the dedicated fans in Ottawa. There are a ton of people there that are so dedicated and so into this. And they finally get to TD Place, which is going to be great. And then they have to play York. So it sounds like York may be in there to try to shush the crowd again, which might be sad.
Keep an eye on it. They're enjoying it, no doubt. Short week again as the games come thick and fast. Starting on Wednesday, top of the table clash. A reminder: please go to CanPL.ca /predictor, where you can win prizes, predict the scores, and get a trip to the finals in November. Let's go through some quick predictions quickly, randomly. Cavalry Pacific doesn't get much bigger than that on Wednesday. Benedict, your thoughts on this game? What's it going to be?
I'm going to say 2-1 Cavalry. I think they'll get closer to the top of the table.
The next day on Thursday, by the way, that's 7 o'clock local, 9 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. All games live on One Soccer. The next day on Thursday, still in Alberta, FC Edmonton take on Valour, 7 o'clock local, 9 o'clock Eastern. Remember, you can get tickets for these games as well. Go out and support your local teams. On Thursday, Marty, your thoughts on Edmonton Valour? Who's going to win this?
I think I have to go 2-0. 2 goals from the Eddie Krugers, and they're both wearing striped sweaters.
There you go. Love it. He's inspired by his glory.
The referee will allow them to wear something different, just for
there you go. Charlie, you got the game, Ottawa, Halifax. I know you're all over this one. What do you think for the home opener on Saturday? Ottawa going to pull this off?
Do it. I think they're going to do it. I'm going to give them 2-0. Just a big homecoming celebratory win.
There you go. And a reminder, the Canadian Championships are back on Sunday. FC Edmonton take on Cavalry in another Al Clasico. Brady, you get the last word. Who's getting through in the Canadian Championship? Edmonton or Cavalry? Who do you think?
I know that the Eddie Cougars have been a big theme in this podcast, but I'm gonna go with Cavalry advancing.
There we go. Cavalry odds scared of the Eddie Krugers. We'll leave it right there. Thanks for everyone for listening. Enjoy the games. They come thick and fast. And a reminder, CanPL.ca, all of our news, all of our previews, and lots of analysis. These boys do a great job on there. Please continue to read and support. Thanks for all your help on reading those this week. And thanks for watching the games and listening. We'll speak to you soon.